All right, welcome everybody. Nice that you would like to join this webinar. For us, it's the first time to organize a webinar like this. So we in the field in Togo, a small country between Ghana and Nigeria. It's still warm here, so we are sweating. It's close to 30 degrees, but we are kind of used to the heat.
Yeah. And yeah, we kind of came up with the idea of organizing this webinar as we think it's way more interesting to share how we do this while we are doing it instead of afterwards. So tonight will be all about our way of charging with the sun. And yeah, maybe if this is something you like, we will organize more webinars in the future. And if there is a topic you would like a webinar about, then feel free to let us know. We are always open for ideas. In this sheet, these are the answers you filled in while subscribing to the webinar. And it's quite interesting to see how many people are working on their sustainable lives as well. So a lot of people have already solar panels and an electric car, and some are waiting for them. So yeah, that's a good cause, I think.
Yeah, so on the right bottom, some facts for now. So we compare our trip with other overlanders. So we call it overlanders, and normally it's done with a diesel or petrol car. And we compare that with our car. And yeah, so at the moment we saved 75 trees by not fueling up our car. And we are now at close to 75% energy purely generated on our solar panels. So that's quite a lot.
Yeah, for tonight we have a program with Mio Solar. They installed the solar panels on our car, which we use for our personal charging of the fridge and for cooking. And he will explain how a solar panel actually works. And after we have Melvin from Venema, and he made for us the charging system, and he will explain in more detail how that works.
And we will close the night with some, well, of course, there's always time for some questions, but we will also do a last part to explain how we put the solar panels and the charging unit in the field with some examples, and then we can call it a night.
So we would like to give the word to Jules.
Yes, it works, I think. Can you hear me? Great. I'll try to spotlight my video. All right. Thanks, Maarten and Renske, for the introduction, and great that there are so many people. I'd like to present a little bit about solar modules. So about solar modules work and how they are applied on the vehicle of Maarten and Renske of 4x4electric. As you can see here, there are solar modules on the vehicle, on the hood, on the rooftop tent, to produce energy for basically for the household application of the trip. And of course, there are also a lot of solar panels in the back who charge the car, and Melvin from Venema will tell a little bit more about that. And together with my colleague Danny, we will tell something about how solar modules actually work. First, a bit of information about our company. Our company Mio Solar is established in 2019, and we started by trying to build solar modules for our racing boat. Actually, we were participating in races, and this interest in making solar panels eventually led to this company. And with Mio Solar, we are specialized in the development and the production of custom solar modules, high-end solar modules, in any shape or application. So this means we can make modules with strange shapes to match, for example, a vehicle or a boat, in this case, on this picture. And also we always strive to develop a solar module for our clients or projects with very high efficiency. So the services we provide are prototyping, research and development for other companies to develop new types of solar modules. Of course, plain production of solar modules, and also the integration on vehicles like we did on the 4x4 electric. Here you see us at work. And we work in various markets, but there's one common thing, and that is that we produce solar modules for moving objects. So one of them is, for example, the aerospace market. You see a gondola which hangs below a balloon which goes to the stratosphere. Or we are working on drone projects. Another one is the like road vehicles, which are often still prototypes. But I think the one from Maarten Renske is the first one actually driving with solar panels on the roof, like an actual road legal vehicle, I would say. Another one is solar racing vehicles. A beautiful picture here of the TU Delft solar car, where we make the solar panels for many other teams. And of course, important one, the marine market, which is boats and yachts. So there's a big shift in the ability to put solar panels on objects to actually power your trips. Let's move on. So meanwhile, I'm also letting in more people in the webinar, so sometimes I'm a bit distracted. So excuse me for that. So what is solar PV actually? PV stands for photovoltaics, and photovoltaics again in its turn stands for light or photo, and electricity, voltaic. So currently a typical rooftop solar panel, which we saw in the first slide that quite a lot of people have solar panels already. The ones you can currently buy are around 400 watts a piece. And in the Netherlands, this will generate also around 400 kilowatt hours per year. Well, the technology speeds up pretty fast. So I think maybe 4 years ago, the panels were only 300 watt peaks. So there's a major increase in efficiency, also a bit in size, of course, but efficiency goes pretty quickly, and also new technologies coming up. So a little bit of how a solar module is built. Here you see my colleague Danny, who will take the word in a few slides. With a very fragile solar cell assembly in his hand. Here you see these solar cells are shingled for the ones who know a little bit more about this. So they are overlapping, like also shingles on a roof. So we can increase the fill factor. But such an assembly is very fragile. Actually, a solar cell is also very fragile. I don't know if you can see my video screen. This is a solar cell. And I will show you how far I can bend it. Well, now it broke. So you can imagine we cannot place this solar cell on the roof like this, because probably it will break due to the wind or other environmental influences. But also it will corrode and eventually not work. So we have to protect those cells. And they are protected in various layers. That's also what we do at Mio Solar. So we connect the solar cells together, and we make sure that we package them into different polymers. So this is, in short, how a solar module is built. From top down, you have an aluminum frame. This is for normal solar modules, which are on a roof. So it is more sturdy, and you can also mount it. Then a very important layer is the glass layer, which protect the solar cell from UV light, but also from a hailstorm, for example, or moisture. Because we produce lightweight solar modules, we don't use glass. We use different kind of polymers to make the solar panel lighter. The glass is, of course, very heavy. Then there is a layer of encapsulant, which is basically a glue layer to glue everything together. Then, of course, the solar cells themselves, another layer of encapsulant or glue, and a backsheet or back glass. So this is what, I would say the final layer on the backside, which also protects a solar cell. And the modules we make basically consist out of the same materials, except for the aluminum and the glass. In that way, we can make them very lightweight. Meanwhile, I will open the chat to see if there are any questions. No, only practical questions, so we'll move on. And I'll give the word to my colleague Danny to talk about a little bit more about the principles of how solar cells work. I will unmute you, Danny. Yeah.
Yeah, I unmuted myself. Okay, so in the core, the bare solar cell, the simple implementation consists of a thin slice of often silicium, which is a relatively affordable and abundant material on Earth, and we really know how the cell works because we have a large background, or the world has a large background in using it as in chips. So there's a lot of machinery who can work with it, and in the specifics of solar arrays and solar cells, they do a very simple doping. So one side of the solar cell has a doping which has a few atoms with 1 electron more, and the other side has a doping with atoms which has 1 electron less, and we mount conductors to that, and by bombarding it with photons, the electrons in the shells of the atoms get in a different energy level, which allows them to move freely in the cell. And if we then gather those electrons on one side and then through an external circuit transfer it to the other side, we can utilize the electrical energy of it, which is of course why we want the solar cells. And the part that it's silicium makes it that it works in the visible spectrum and a part in the near infrared spectrum. There are some other cell technologies which allows us to explore also the UV and the infrared a bit more. But since they are often also environmentally damaging the environment, we stick to the known and a common silicium. The silicium also has the property that it is a fixed structure, so it's a crystalline structure which is almost perfect, except for those doped atoms which are making it a bit less perfect. But it's a crystalline structure which is rigid, and that makes them fragile. But there are some limited bending properties which showed in the first radius, and which allows us to make flexible solar or semi-flexible solar panels, but continuous flexible is undesirable. But yeah, those are the basics. And next slide. Yeah, so the typical voltage that one single cell generates is about 0.6 volts. And it's the voltage of a solar cell is largely influenced by the band gap, which is depending on the temperature. The current of a cell is largely dependent on the amount of energy of the photons that are delivered to the cell, and often we keep a standard of 1000 watts per square meter. It's sort of the reference, which is I think about the standard everybody uses to measure the performance of a solar cell, and which is also in the summer here when there are no clouds. But there are of course different levels of energy, and they will vary the current that is available. So if you combine both maximums, or the most optimal point to load the solar cell, you get maximum energy out of a solar cell. And if you combine it in a large array, you also have to do that. And that point is not fixed. So in the next section, Melvin will explain what device is needed to tune the available energy to a load, because you cannot connect a solar cell or a solar panel directly to a battery. Well, you can, but the energy utilization is limited. And in this graph, you can see that the point where you can take the maximum energy out of a solar panel varies on the irradiance, so the available sunlight, and also the temperature. And then on the left, the thing that looks like the sun is an explanation on what angle you can put the solar cell in the Netherlands and get maximum irradiance over a year. And I think the team on the 4x4electric will also explain that by pointing solar cells, solar modules, you can get a higher energy. And as you can see in the sunlight description, we have to point the solar panels down, so towards the south to get the maximum utilization. But since they are in Africa, they have to point it to the north. But oh, sorry, since they are traveling towards the equator, the angle changes. Okay, next slide. Yeah, so there are more and more possible utilizations of solar panels. We often use them or recognize them on roofs where they are made out of glass, and stationary, where the weight is less of an influence. And they used to be standard modules, which are not that pretty to see, but we mount them on top. But we see more manufacturers allowing systems or creating systems where they can be integrated into a building or into the roof instead of on top. But it can also be integrated in vehicles, which is then vehicle integrated PVs. And there are some example cars now coming to the market. We see on here on the right is the Sono car from Germany. And there is an American variant that is the Aptera, which is upcoming. Yeah, but so the thing that we would like to point out is that by applying or customizing the solar array, it becomes more convenient to use solar, and which also allows us to be less harmful to the environment with the use of our energy. Okay, the next. Yeah, so the energy which is a solar array produces is in the form of DC. And the target in the car is also DC, which is quite convenient, but you need to match the source. So the car battery is not always on the same voltage, and the solar panel is not always on the same voltage as the car. And there's something that you need to do is you sort of need to glue those two together, and by bluntly putting them together, you get a very poor transfer, or if you have bad luck, the energy goes the wrong way. So you need a converter for that. And in the 4x4 example, it's a DC-DC converter. And by looking for the area which has the most energy on the solar array size or on the solar array electrically, the most energy is converted. And that function of looking for the maximum energy point is a maximum power point tracking. Okay, then the final slide of Mio Solar. Over here you can see us working on a solar array, which we just assembled and just came out of the laminator. So there's a bit of a brim around it, which is waste material which we cut away. And the finished structure on top allows us to absorb energy in multiple directions. So that was why it's not shiny, but a bit matte. But this is one of the solar arrays that went on a solar car, which raced in Africa as well. Yep. Sure. So are there any questions?
Yeah, we see one question in the chat up until now on how we experience any failure on the solar panels so far.
Well, at the moment, so far we are well lucky, but or not. It's just they work as they should be. We see that at higher temperatures that we can generate less energy, especially the ones on the rooftop tent. They get really hot, close to 70 degrees in full sunlight, and then we notice that the overall yield of a day is less because the temperature is going up.
But then again, the panels that we put outside to charge the car, we have done that now, I think, almost 40 times. So setting them all up and storing them again, and there's no failure there yet. So that's really good.
Yet.
Of course, this can change. But if we look at the panels now, they still look really good. So yeah, we clip them, of course, together quite often, and it all works perfect still. Yeah, so that's good news.
And a question about the DC charger. Maybe we can answer that one after the presentation of Melvin. And then a question from Mauritania. Thank you for this. It's indeed an issue that so the question is, if at higher temperatures, does that mean the solar panels would not be efficient in my country? So what we noticed is that in Mauritania, the radiation was probably the highest we had in the trip so far. But it was not that hot when we were there. So we got quite some good, we generate a lot of energy. But it's indeed an issue that during especially the really hot days that solar panels would be a little bit less efficient.
But then again, you can also relay them on the ground directly. And of course, the ground can get really hot. We used, for example, dunes, and sometimes a dune can become so hot you cannot walk over it in the middle of the day. And if you, of course, lift the panels a little bit, then the wind can blow underneath, and then they would work more efficiently as well. So they would definitely work in your country, that's for sure.
I think maybe also to add to this is that indeed the solar panels will get hotter, of course, but compared to the Netherlands for sure. But also the irradiance is much higher. So for part of it, probably year round, you will produce maybe 2 or 2.5 as much as we would produce on the much more up north, although our panels will stay cooler. So the factor of irradiance is much more important than the factor of temperature.
I think that's all the questions for now. So then we can go to Melvin.
Yeah, hello, good evening, everybody. My name is Melvin Venema. I'm from the company of Venema E-Mobility, from the E-Mobility department. Please, next slide, Jules. So a small introduction from our company. We started in 2003, where we started with automotive and marine systems, energy solutions. In the first, we are building a yacht, and from there, we take the energy solutions from the boats to the wall, where we use that solutions inside of cars, where we have a lot of experience with. In 2018, I started the Venema E-Mobility department on the Venema, and where we are focusing on DC charging solutions, especially DC, fast charging, but also smart charging. That's a really important one. So a lot of people are thinking with DC charging that it's only fast charging, but you can also go to smart charging, think about vehicle to grid systems, where we can use the battery of the car for using your electricity at home. In the field of DC charging, our focus is on the construction sites. So at the moment, there is a big question on the market about electrify construction machines, big machines, where we have developed chargers for mobile solutions and also battery solutions. So on the construction side, there's not enough power to charge, or there's no connection, what we see. And that is a market where we are in and where we are making charger solutions for. 4x4electric comes to us, I think, a year ago, or a year and a half ago, and with the question, can we charge with solar panels in Africa our car directly? So that question was for us an eye opener. So yeah, in Africa you don't have an electrical or you don't have a stable electrical grid, and on the most locations you don't have a connection to charge your vehicle. There are also no charging points on the road, then you want to charge with your electric vehicle in the field. And I will tell you in this presentation more how we have made a system together with 4x4 to charge efficient the car in the middle of Africa. Next slide. About AC and DC charging. So the basic point. AC charging is that we use the onboard charger of the car. So what you see is the converter inside of the car, and then there's a low, how you say that, then you cannot charge fast, but you need to put AC on the car and you can charge, and you have some energy loss inside of the car of like 5%. When you want to charge fast, like at Fastnet or by the highway, the converter can be upgraded in a DC charging pole, where the DC charging pole will convert AC current to DC current, and there you have more space for more converters, so you can charge your car faster, or you can charge your car smarter, what I say in the beginning. So what also possible is with a DC charging pole is that you can discharge your car when you have a bidirectional charging pole. So that's also a theory. DC charging is not only fast charging, but in the traditional way, it is fast charging and high power. Next slide, Jules. What we see at the car of 4x4electric is that there's a European standard, there's a European car. And then you have the Type 2 inlet. You see at the left side of the screen. And you have the DC inlet, the CCS Type 2, CCS2 inlet. The difference between it is that at the CCS2 inlet, CCS2 inlet, there are 2 points more under the other inlet, and there are the plus and minus of the battery. So we can connect directly to the battery, and we can also communicate all information to the car, but we also get all the information from the BMS to our charging station. And with all that information, we can start the charging session, and we can go charge. In the that's not the only charging standard which is in the world. There are a lot of different charging standards. So what you see, that is you have America CCS2 Type 1, Japan, so it's Shademo, and China, it is GBT. So there are a lot of different charging standards, a lot of different protocols in the market. So it is always what you see in Europe, there's one standard at the moment, that is CCS, but also on other old cars we also see the Japanese standard Shademo, and one of the things of Shademo is that we can discharge the car. At the moment, CCS is also starting with bidirectional charging. We do some tests with car manufacturers in that case, but at the moment, I think it will have a year then that like Volkswagen will able to do that with the new standard. Next slide, Jules. When we look to different designs of DC charging, then you have the traditional way that there's an AC grid and that you can transform from AC to DC. So that's like a charging pole, what you see at the highway. There you have energy loss like 5%. When we look to other charging solutions, where is a small grid connection, then you can use a battery system on it, and you can use DC charging system, and there you have energy loss of 3%. Next slide, Jules. When we look to the whole system, then that means that there's more loss at AC/DC charge solutions when we want to build a charger solution with the available equipment on the market. So that was at the beginning one of the Renske and Maarten came to us and they say how we go to make a system that we can charge our car in Africa and maybe with Victron, so that you can use solar panels, a DC-DC converter, a battery system, and then the DC-AC converter to transform to the AC standard type 2, and then charge your car. But what you see, there's a lot of energy loss, or there's more energy loss, and you have a heavy equipment. So in that case, I think Renske and Maartske don't have a place to sleep in the car, or other place. But we think smarter, and we are looking for a solution. Instead of, we have a lot of experience with DC-DC charging from a battery, and a battery and solar panels is it is different, but it is DC. So when we look to the first test, what we did is we use DC-DC charge solutions from which we have developed earlier to charge the car. So it was a first test, and looking how was reacting the converter, how was reacting the car, how was that going, and what we saw is that it was going well. The only thing what we saw is that we need to manage the communication to the car, so that we can communicate when there's a cloud, or that we can communicate the current which is flowing to the car. And when we don't do that in the right timeline, the charger will directly stop. So that was one of the things where we are busy on. When we go to the next slide, then we can see a little bit more about the development. So at the left, you see a DC-DC bidirectional charger on a testing table, where we are testing inside our factory, first with a DC power supply, so a solar simulator. Later we have tested in the field with the red car of 4x4. So it was in the beginning with solar panels on it, and the result was that it was going good, but there were some points to look in. So one of the points was the communication to the car, that we need to do that really fast, but we cannot see that there is coming a cloud, or the solar panels are doing less. So in the second, we made a special DC charger solution for 4x4electric, where we tested another day in September. So it was, I think, a few weeks before they go to Africa. So the timeline was really, really small. But it was a sunny day, and we tested it again. And what we saw is that the charge solutions was going better than the first time. It was also safe because DC high voltage is, it's a dangerous voltage. So what we implement inside of the charger is isolation detection, EMD, so that we know for sure when there is something happen, that he will disconnect everything directly. So that's one of the high priorities of our company, to make systems safe. And from there, we are building charging points. When we go to the next slide, at the moment, we have made a PC software on the charger, so that they see all the information of the charging session and also the current information, and they can control the charger itself. So it is like a human MPPT function on the charger, so that you need to look to the clouds, look to the light, and what's the charger is going, and they need to research the maximum power tracking by himself. So that's an important point, but we want to do it different. So when we go to the next slide, this is a charging day of 4x4electric. What you see is that they are really good in human MPPT. They find a way to charge the vehicle over the whole day from 10-20% to 80%. And you see that the charger is sometimes falling down because of the car communication error. so that we don't communicate it, that the voltage is dropped down, and that we don't communicate fast to the car that it was dropped down. So that is one of our focus points at this moment in the expeditie. Next slide. At the moment, we are working on the automatic MPPT function or MPPT function, and we are doing a lot of data from charging sessions, what we see, and Renske and Maarten share a lot of information with us. And with that information, we are see some things inside our software where we can control the charger on. So our goal is to fully automatic charge, but at the moment, yeah, Renske and Maarten needs to be do it remote with the laptop. But at the moment, we are looking to the data and looking for possibilities to make it automatic. What we see at the right down schematic is that when the solar panels are a little bit dropped down in voltage, and you see a small voltage ripple, that is one of the moments that we can that Renske and Maarten can how you said it, can charge a little bit less, so that the charger is on maximum power tracking. And what you see at the red point is that there's a whole voltage drop down, and that means by that the charger is stopped, and then you see then you want to start again a charging session. With that kind of information, what we see and what kind of data we get, we want to make it automatically, so that they never do it by hand, but then automatically. But at the moment we are testing with it, and sometimes we send a new software version, and then we are looking with them how we can do it automatically. But we need to have a lot of data collection before, and we are sharing knowledge with Jules and Danny, with Mito, and we are checking together with the team how we can make this function ready. And I think we are really far with it. Small points we need to do where we work hard on, but it is difficult because you have the car communication, what you need to do fast, and you cannot say to the car when you don't know when the voltage drop down, that the charging current is less. So we are looking for a possible way. Next slide. It was the presentations, my presentation. If there are any questions, I'm open for that.
I think, thank you, Melvin. We will add on Melvin his story later with our own experience, but that on a few slides. So a question for Melvin. The connections from the solar panels going into the DC box look very close to each other with 600-volt DC open circuits from the panels. Is there danger attaching these connections?
Yeah, that's a good point. So we are always holding the standard for it, and also when Maarten and Renske are connecting the panels, they don't connect the panels on voltage. So they have always in the middle of the string a last connection between the solar panels, so that you can connect the charger. You can make all the connections, and then at the middle of the solar string, you connect the latest, so that there can never be a problem. But of course, the connections are standard MC4, and maybe in a new solution or next solution product, we are looking for a better and easy way to connect.
All right, another question from Melvin, who has also a Skoda Enyaq, as we have. Are you planning to build a commercial DC-DC charging solution for home users?
Now, at the moment, we are doing a lot, a lot of DC chargers, DC charge on transport companies for big for big use. But that's with the battery system. With all the data collection, which we do with 4x4, we want in the future to build a product like what they have, but then like product-wise for the market. But that can be, I think, a year, 2 years that it is ready.
One more question. Do you think you can solve the remaining issues with software only, or does there need to be a small buffer, battery or something to solve this?
I think we can solve them by software, but also another option is what we also, how we said, what we also in the project group with Mito is that we can use a solar cell where we can see the voltage drop down on it until we can react faster. But when we check the data at this moment, we can do it by software, but we need to have more software updates needed.
We had another question if our charging unit can be used for different car brands, and the answer is maybe you can answer this question, Melvin.
Now you can use the charger for different car brands. It is the standard CCS2 fast charging protocol. So every European car with CCS2 or every car with CCS2 can we connect and can use this charger.
Yeah, so we can charge every other car in Europe with our charging in the back of the car. So that's quite cool. It's not only unique to our expedition. And maybe to add on that is that the charging technique, well, we didn't change anything on the electrical side of the car. So everything is outside like the electrical system of the car. It's also an important note that we didn't change anything on that.
Okay, thank you, Melvin. Then if there are no more questions, we have a little information from our side as well on how our experiences are. So Jules, if you can go to the next slide. Here you can see how it's going. So we have we started with the solar charging in Morocco, and as you have seen, we have tested a little bit in the Netherlands before we departed, but not that much. So it was quite exciting to charge the first time in Morocco and see that it really was working. In the beginning of Morocco, we also used a wall outlet sometimes, but when we arrived in Dakhla, this is in the south of Morocco, we thought, okay, let's try how long we can keep using the solar panels only and not use a wall outlet.
The funny thing is that just before we charged our car on a camping place, and we didn't ask too much power from the wall outlet, but in the morning it was melted down to our connector, and the connector we have is the standards we have in Europe, so they could handle the heat, but the wall outlets here cannot. So that's also something. But yeah, we can elaborate later on it. But we can charge way faster with our charging unit than with the wall outlet.
Let alone all the power dropouts you have here in Africa. So it's way more interesting to charge with the sun for us. And so we did, starting in Dakhla all the way to Ghana. We didn't use any wall outlet at all. This wasn't our plan from the beginning, but it just went so smooth, and the weather was always good when we needed it. I think we had 2 or 3 days we had to wait because of the clouds, but then that was fine for us as well.
And that's something that if there's a lot of clouds, then it's quite hard work for us, because we have constantly set the power up and down if a cloud's coming by. But what we saw is that it's so stable, the system, that it's not the system works, and that we are very glad on that. We fully trust the system, and we are still developing it, but we have very we are very happy with what Melvin and his team made.
Yes, definitely. And yeah, of course, yeah, you can see here that we have driven 5,550 kilometers purely on the sun in 32 charging sessions. All is still working great. There's no real damage so far of using the panels and the charging unit. So we're very happy with that. In the next slide, you can see some pictures of how the people respond to this. This was something we were very curious for before we departed, because of course it's not something you see every day, people laying out their panels, and as well as how easy is it to find a location where you can charge for a whole day.
But it's the first thing is that people are really understanding what we are doing, and that's really welcoming, and people are really friendly, and they see this, and they see this is the future. They also see that it is expensive, but in the future things will change, and that's yeah, people really understand that we are doing this.
Yes, in the countries here, you don't see that many solar panels yet. As for here, they are really expensive, and there's not that much knowledge often on how to install them. But they do understand that they have a lot of sun, and yeah, if you can drive on the sun, of course, they see that as a really nice potential.
It's always fun to that we say to people, hey, this is an electric car. You have a lot of police stops here in Africa, and it's quite normal, and we every time we get stopped, sometimes not, depends on the country, but and they stop us and they just ask for our papers, and it's always fine. And then we say to them, it's an electric car, and then first they look at us, and then okay, and then we say it again and say no gasoline, and then we open the charger inlet outlet of our car, and they see you cannot fill it with a petrol thing, and then they really like blown away, and it's, for many people, it's the first time they see an electric car, and they really like it.
Yes, actually only positive reactions, and
yeah,
but it's also nice that often they don't really realize it's an electric car, so you have to mention it, otherwise they don't notice. And if they then hear it, they say, oh, indeed, it doesn't make any sound, and it looks different, but yeah, they don't see it directly. Yeah, so that's on the local side of the people we meet. On the other hand, you have, of course, also other overlanders. Overlanders are people traveling like us for a long distance through multiple countries. It's quite interesting. Of course, they all drive on fuel still, and yeah, their reactions are also very surprised. They often could not have imagined that this was an option, and then it's quite different. Some people would have loved to try this as well. Others are still a little bit skeptical,
yeah,
as they just like the comfort of fueling their car in a couple of minutes. But then if you look at how they travel, it's actually not that different compared to us, as you never drive every day, because you experience quite a lot in a day of driving, and you also need to process this. So if you look at their travel speed, it's quite the same as us, actually, sometimes even slower. So yeah, it doesn't really result in
what
a
we
delay.
see compared to other overlanders is they take sometimes a little bit more off-road routes, but yeah, that's something we cannot do. Our car is not suitable for like really off-road routes, yeah, but sometimes we have to, especially in Western Africa, and we can drive very bad roads, way worse than we expected. So our car is handling it very well if we drive slowly and controlled. And yeah, and the fun thing is that you drive very slowly on a very bad road, and the only thing you hear is the tires rotating on the stones, and you have no engine sound, and that's really interesting too.
It's really nice. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you can go to the next slide, then you can see our experience on finding charging locations. These are in the beginning, it's funny also to look at the sky. In the beginning, you see mostly blue skies. This was in the north of West Africa. And the more we go south, that's the right corner, yeah, we noticed clouds can become a challenge. So thinking of us as the human MPPT, this results in a little bit more work. But yeah, still, yeah, interesting charging days.
Yeah, and it is, as Melvin already mentioned, and I think Danny or Jules as well, but pointing the solar panels in the direction of the sun is something that gives us, or a solar panel in general, the most energy in a whole day. And because the sun is moving, and that's why we have the different seasons in the world. So in midsummer, even where you live on the world, is in midsummer the sun is directly above you, and then best is to put your solar panel flat. And if you are more in the winter or in the autumn, then you need to put them in direction south. And what we see in Morocco, we still needed an angle of 45 degrees, so that's quite steep. But now we are close to more to the sun, and now a flat or 15 degrees, only 15 degrees already enough to point them towards the sun.
Yeah, so in the picture on the right top, you actually see the location where we had the best charging day up until now.
The left top.
The left top, sorry. We had a very steep mountain, and it was
perfectly aligned.
Yeah, for us it was perfect to lay out our solar panels, so it was a really good day. On the left bottom, you see another picture of a dune where we charged, and then you see other challenges as a dune is very dusty. So this was also the first time where we had to dust the panels off to increase the yield of the day. Yes.
Yeah, and compared to other overlanders, there's a comment from somebody that is overlanding in Asia, and that diesel is not always available. That's something we hear as well, also for the next countries, in Nigeria, for example. And not only the availability, but also the quality. So all the overlanders using petrol, they have discussions about with each other about the quality of the fuel they put in their car.
Yeah.
And for us, electricity is electricity. So yeah.
Yeah, and then a question as well of if you are comfortable leaving our car and solar panels while charging. Yeah, this is for us not an option, as at the moment we are the human MPPT, so we help to increase the maximum yield of the day while charging. So we always are at the car while charging. And even if it would go automatically, so we wouldn't be needed as MPPT, I think we would still stay at the car. Yeah, because the car would have to be open to charge, and yeah, we just prefer staying close to it at those times.
Yeah. Yeah, so the question is about if a panel fails. So we have 60 solar panels, and we have a little bit technical, but 2 strings of 30 panels. And we can lose some panels in order for our charging unit to still function. So we can lose a couple of them, and worst case scenario, we can always use a wall plug, or we can even be like pulled by another car to generate energy in really worst case scenario. And in regards to the DC charging, a question from somebody is, what's the minimum and maximum charging speed? Well, that for us is depending on our solar panels. So the maximum what we have in solar panels is a little bit less than 11 kilowatt peak, but we never get this because there's always the temperature, or you have some clouds, or so the maximum we've had so far, it was close to 10 kilowatts, which is quite a lot, so 9.8 kilowatts, and it was in a mountaintop. But then we had a reflection of the clouds, so yeah, there was special conditions. But the minimum, yeah, we can charge already at 300 watts. Yeah, not that much, but that's not giving us much because then we can charge in 1 hour, like 2 kilometers. So that's not a.
Yeah, then also a question on how long it takes to charge the car. Of course, this is very dependable on many factors. But in a good day, we can charge for now above 50% of the car, which is about the same as 225 kilometers. So that's, yeah, for us, more than a normal driving day. I think our average for driving in a day is something around 90 kilometers, including the not driving days.
Yeah, so the past, not Europe not included because we did it with fast charging, but purely looking at Africa, we have around 90 kilometers on average a day.
Yeah. Yeah, and for a future expedition, would we take more solar with us? I actually don't think so. For us, this is working actually quite good, which is quite surprising as we calculated it on the kitchen table and on, yeah, just imagining like how much would you need. And I think we're quite happy with the amount that we have.
Yeah, as well, because 60 solar panels, well, we have a time-lapse video on our YouTube channel, and you can see how much time it costs to get it in the car. And 60 solar panels it sounds a lot, but it's doable. So if you have more solar panels, then it becomes also more work, and as well that our car is getting more heavy. So yeah, and solar panel, every solar panel is like 3 kilograms. So, but it's more convenient than we thought. Yeah.
Yeah, then a question, what we do for our safety. Do we skip specific areas? And what information do we use to prepare ourselves? Actually, yeah, it's interesting that we are quite surprised how safe, surprised sounds negative, but we are really happy with how safe Africa feels. We haven't really felt unsafe once, so that's quite good. What we do in preparation of this is we are in contact with a lot of other travelers here in Africa, and actually every day we share experiences on roads or border crossings or how the roads are, to help each other have a good experience, and this works really well.
Yeah, it's really close, but really a community helping each other. Yeah, making our trips better for everybody.
We even have people driving sometimes in front of us, sharing how it is to how they would think it would be driving on the sun. So they look for charging locations or something, which is of course difficult, but it's very nice to yeah, to get some help. Let me see.
Yeah, so the question is, do we get a lot of muscle from all the solar panels, putting them out and in the car? Well, we're getting some muscles, but it's not that much because it's only like 15 minutes, so it doesn't. It's like a very quick workout. But yeah, it's a workout because especially in the temperatures we are now, during the day it's really warm, and we from the Netherlands are not used to these temperatures, but we getting slowly used to it, but still it's quite hot during the day.
Yeah, and some apps we use to prepare is, of course, we use a weather app. We have found an app that's giving us an estimation, like the Buienradar of the Netherlands. It shows where it rains and where the clouds are. And if we have the option, we always look upfront how the days will evolve. And then we choose which day could be the best to charge. Of course, weather is not always predictable, so but it helps. And another app we often use is iOverlander. This is a map of the whole world actually, and people share their locations to go wild camping or campsites, but also information about the roads and border crossings. And this helps us as well quite a lot.
You can get visa in big cities, so you don't have to look yourself to all the different embassies.
Yeah,
because it's quite I think that's the sometimes the most challenging part of our expedition is to getting the visa. We are blessed with the Dutch passport, so we can almost enter every country, but still you have to arrange the visa, and that's normally quite a hassle to arrange.
Yes. So if we go to the next slide, then we have gathered some of the challenges we have had. None of them are unsolvable, but it's quite interesting to see the difference in each country of the challenges that there are. In the beginning of our trip, we had the wind, for example, as a challenge. If it blows underneath the panels, that's of course not that nice, as they can blow away. We only experienced this once, actually.
It was quite an intense moment because the wind was getting stronger and stronger, and yeah, then cleaning up the solar panels is also well, sort of a danger because you cannot check all the panels. It was not a nice moment, but for us it was yeah, we learned from it and
Yes.
and how to deal with in the future. So that's yeah.
Yeah, then of course clouds, that says it for itself. Smoke is an interesting one. We didn't expect this upfront, but a lot of wood is burned here. Also waste is burned, and this results in very thick, dark clouds, and they go up quite high, so they can come before the sun and then result in less yield of the day. In addition, the leaves, it's not fall here as it's always kind of summer, but still leaves do fall down. And if they blow over our panels, this can have also quite an impact, as the leaves here are way bigger than in our home country.
And I think that is also the biggest challenge for the charging unit is that solar panels are really fluctuating in how much power they can give, and that's depending on, of course, clouds and all the things we are mentioning here. But the car wants to have as stable as possible amount of power, and so yeah, the car wants a really stable power, but the solar panels cannot give this, and this is the challenge that Melvin and his team are trying to solve, because that's the complex part.
Yeah. Then another one we experienced for the first time in Liberia. We had rain in Africa. That's just not something that happens quite often. Well, now actually quite more and more often as we are going closer to the rainy season. And the first rain was actually really nice for us, as it was a free way to clean them in a good way. So that was really nice. In the future, when it's a rainy day, we just won't lay them out. And if it rains, we always stop charging just for security. And also, the more south we go for now, the more plants and trees there are. So it becomes more challenging to find a location to charge.
Yeah, so the animals, we had one goat that runs straight over our solar panels, and normally what we see is that all the animals go around it. So we had a dromedary, and they're looking, okay, what's this? But I'm not gonna go there. But there was one goat, and he just, so we were scared that there's some panels broke. It was really in the beginning in Morocco, but in the end the panels are still fine. So we're very happy with those panels. And birds, and also the shit of the birds, sometimes not always fun, but you can clean them.
Yeah, so this is actually our last sheet. So for now we have all the time also for your questions. I just read a nice one as well on how many other electric vehicles we actually find here in Africa. This we saw actually the most of them in Morocco. There are also some charging installations available, and after that it was none. Only in some cities there are testing with small buses that are made by hand.
We haven't seen it a lot here in the western part of Africa, and also to go to the next question, is that are the people here aware of climate change and the global warming, and also and that's the interesting thing, is that if we talk a little bit about our expedition, they immediately make the connection with climate change, so that this really is the future. And they often do like this from the other cars. You see cars like really black smoke coming out of the exhaust, and they that our car doesn't make no smell, and they really understand it. We have spoken to different people. It really depends on the countries. So some countries are, especially Sierra Leone, Liberia, are quite poor, and then what we see is that people are less doing on sustainability, what we fully can understand, because they are very poor. So people have to really fight for their lives and prioritize. But in most countries, you see that there are more drafts and then more rainfall afterwards, and that's it's going slowly but steady, and that's quite sad also here in Africa.
Yes, I think we can go to our last slide. If there are any more questions, feel free to send them in the chat.
Yeah, so this was a picture of the review of our car. So we were still in the Netherlands. Now we are a little bit more sun, a little bit more tan, and we don't wear any long pants anymore. For
a long time.
For a long time.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, let's check if we missed.
Oh, there's one new message coming in. Thanks for the presentation. Okay, more than welcome. Yeah, we will send a question afterwards if there's interest maybe in other topics for the future. So things you would like to know about how we do this, how we experience things or else, do let us know. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much for your attention and interest in our expedition. And
yeah, we will keep you posted as we always do on all our channels, and feel free to contact us for anything.